All right, we all know that novelists are a dime a dozen these days, but few have an impact like Barbara Kingsolver. And the amazing thing is, Barbara never thought she'd write for a living. She grew up in rural Kentucky, spent a year in Africa as a kid. That's where she started a journal. A few years later, she published her first piece. It was an essay in a local Kentucky paper about why her community needed a new school. Eventually, Barbara went to university on a piano scholarship, ended up studying biology, and landed in Arizona. She worked as a science writer and a freelance journalist, and she got married, got pregnant, and insomnia kicked in. So she started writing a novel to pass the time. That novel was The Bean Trees, published in 1988. It was a bestseller. In fact, it became so popular, it is still in print 20 years after it came out. The Poisonwood Bible was another book from her and another bestseller, and it was even shortlisted for the Pulitzer. But the awards didn't end there. In 2000, Barbara won the National Humanities Medal, America's highest honor for service through the arts. She also established the Bellwether Prize to recognize fiction that promotes social change. Now Barbara's got a new book, only this one is nonfiction. It's called Animal Vegetable Miracle, A Year of Food Life. Basically, Barbara moved her family to a farm and they challenged each other to live a year off the land. And here she is, Barbara Kingsolver. Very nice to see you. Thank you very much. All right. Animal Vegetable Miracle, A Year of Food Life. I mean, for people to know what you did, what did you do and why did you do this?
Ate food for 1 year, paying really careful attention to where it came from. And the reason for that is probably obvious to anyone who's been paying attention. We're coming into a sort of a four-way collision of food crises in North America and in the world. In fact, with health problems because of really overconsumption of calories. We have environmental crises because of industrial agriculture. We have this petroleum-driven system that's running out of gas, literally. And there are also these cultural problems related to forgetting about farmers, and so we have rural communities dying.
Now, those are all macro things. Did you have a moment for yourself where you kind of looked around and went, I think I need to do something different here?
Of course. I mean, what kind of animal would forget where its food comes from? I mean, a dumb one, right? And that would be us. Well, it's become very difficult. It's almost like a cultural amnesia. And so thinking about these things had led me to really pay closer and closer attention. I grew up in a farming community. I've always grown a garden. I've always had a sort of a fondness for knowing where my food came from.
Were you the hippie in college who had her own tomatoes?
I was.
Yeah.
I was that girl. Yeah, even, later on when I lived in cities, I had balconies, with pots and stuff. It always mattered to me, and I thought, well, if it matters this much, why not spend a year really trying to get everything from as close to home as possible, if not my own garden, then the farmer's market or the county where I live. I'm lucky to live in a place where people still grow food. And so we undertook this project to really do it, eat locally for a year and then write about it, because that makes it more interesting. You take a vow, in front of everybody, and that way if you mess up,
you have to deal with it.
Yeah, you have to deal with it.
Some people are familiar with the idea of the 100-mile diet. For those who aren't, explain that and how it's different from what you were doing.
Well, this wasn't a parlor game for us. We didn't draw a line and say, I won't go over there. Yeah. We just wanted to do our best. We also wanted to do something that seemed reasonable and doable. We didn't want to be martyrs. And when I say we, I mean my family, my husband, and my two daughters. We took this on as a family, and we actually wrote the book as a family too. And we didn't give up coffee, for example, because, we didn't want this
You're
book...
not animals, for crying out loud.
We didn't want this book to be shelved in the, Lives of the Saints section of your religious bookstore.
But that's a really big part of this, right? A lot of times when people talk about health and food, there does seem to be some sort of hard and fast rule that makes it almost an unattainable reality.
No, we wanted to just do our best. So a handful of things that we could get from fair trade we got, at the grocery store. But the great majority of our diet, like most people's, are fruits and vegetables, eggs and meats. And we realized we could get all these things from our own farmers in our own county.
Did you grow your own food? How much of your own food was yours?
A lot. We have a big garden, and we ended up growing most of our own vegetables. And we even grew some, we had some poultry. Yeah, we did some of it ourselves.
Did you have that problem that I remember I came home from work one day, and in front of my house, all of a sudden I had tomatoes everywhere. I didn't plant the tomatoes, my neighbor did, for some reason. God love him. But there were so many tomatoes, I think they had outgrown what they were thinking of. Did you ever, because you're not an expert at this, so did you just get overrun by anything?
Well, it's hard to plan ahead. How much zucchini are you going to need in 1 year?
Were you overrun by zucchini?
Everybody's overrun by zucchini. It's a fact. It's you forget. It starts out so innocently. You plant a few zucchini plants, and then your garden turns into the zucchini industrial complex. And at least where we live, it's a rural place. Yeah. Everybody has gardens, and you can't waste food because somehow or other we all grew up in the Depression, even if we're 12. You can't waste food, so you have to give it away. So you see your neighbors coming, and they have zucchini, and you hide. Or it becomes this sort of anti-barter system. You say, okay, I will take your zucchini, but you have to mow my yard. Yeah.
And so what do you do with so now you've grown your own vegetables to a degree. Meat's a different thing though. I mean, did you raise a cow and slaughter a cow?
Did not. No, luckily we have farmers who do that. Mm-hmm. We do have poultry though, and my younger daughter, who was 8 when we started this project, her name is Lily, is particularly enamored with poultry. She has, other little girls have Barbie posters, and she has this poster on her wall this calendar called The Fairest Fowl. And she loves chickens, and she wanted to have her own chicken business. And
is Lily the daughter who wanted the pony?
Yeah, she wanted to sell eggs and raise money, and she was hoping to buy a horse. That didn't pan out, but her chicken business is doing great. But here's the trouble: when you get chickens, half of them grow up to be roosters. Mm-hmm. Exactly half. Works out that way every time. And when you keep too many roosters, they begin engaging in a sport that's illegal in 48 states in the U.S.
Barbara, it's only illegal if you strap razor blades onto their claws. Otherwise, it's just nature.
But they find razor blades. They're motivated. No, these guys get really ugly, and it's.
You had rooster fights, for lack of a better term.
I didn't. Mm-hmm. They did, but. No, it's an interesting thing to see your kid look her food in the face and come to terms with that. Mm-hmm. We can get so sentimental in our culture about animals when we don't have to deal with any of this. Somebody's doing it for us. We forget that everything we eat used to be alive. In modern life, most of us encounter animals in maybe 2 categories: pets, mm-hmm. which are junior people, right?
Or we're prey.
Wardrobe, or as Bambi. But it's easy to forget about this other whole category of animals, livestock, that were bred for one reason, to end up on the table. So, and there are better and worse ways. Better and worse. There are kinder or uglier, let's say, ways mm-hmm. to raise animals to become food, and that's something we wanted to learn about in order to write about this in our book. And so, and we did become involved with that. But one of the things Lily had to do was come to grips with the fact we were going to eat some of these. And so she made a rule. She said, "We will only eat the mean ones."
Oh.
Which is.
It's an important life lesson, Barbara.
I think it could apply in many walks of life,
Certainly.
like politics.
Oh yeah. I would argue we only eat the kind ones. When it comes to politics, we let the mean ones run free.
Lily should be in charge.
And how old is she now?
She's 11 now.
Yeah, she's old enough, man.
Yeah, I think.
Why not? A big part of this book, and learning about you, is that you do have a relationship with the farm, a relationship with that community, like you said. But it's not like you're an expert. So I wondered you raised turkeys? Did you have a moment where you had to just do things that you thought, what the hell am I doing here?
All the time. I did grow a garden before, yes. I was the tomato girl, but I was never the turkey girl before. We did more during this project than we had done before, and some things were hard to figure out. And one thing is, our food, our industrial agriculture has removed many things from our food, such as flavor and nutrition. And also, you might not know this, but also, in many cases, sex.
Well, the natural reproduction can't happen fast enough for industrialized food.
That's right. Or they breed these monsters that have such enormous, speaking of turkeys specifically, they have these such huge breasts because, if they want to make all those sandwiches, I mean, not the turkeys, the people, but, and they have, here I am acting it up, and they have so little going on upstairs that they literally can't reproduce. I mean,
But didn't you get them to reproduce?
Well, we didn't have that kind. That type of turkey requires artificial insemination. I mean, people do that, right? That's a job that some people, they have to extract.
I know lots of humans who would rather it happen that way.
Yeah.
Than the other way.
I don't.
You hang around a lot nicer people than I do.
But see, these are the modern breeds. But if you go back a few generations to help you, obviously they didn't have turkey sperm wranglers back in our grandparents' day. They let them take care of that themselves, and that's what we wanted to do. So we raised what's called a heritage breed, a kind of turkey that knows how to do this themselves. Right. And so, but they don't always get it right the first time.
So you had to train them? Is that what you had to do?
Well, had to anti-train them actually because
too much. Those turkeys.
It could happen.
Just like the bunnies, right? So how do you anti-train?
No. What I mean is, okay, let me explain. Well, even the heritage breeds are, when you start your flock, you get them from the turkey poult factory. So they're raised in incubators, and you get them when they're just hatched, and they imprint on you. I mean, if you were the one who opened the box from the post office. So this is something that happens in birds. They imprint on the first thing they see, and then when they grow up, they want to mate with that. So, yeah, we had that problem, but
You just sat in front of a DVD player and said, "This is how it works," like all of our parents do.
We use distraction, And,
nice. So you said coffee because coffee isn't important, but you can't. Like, did you have other things?
They don't grow coffee where I come from, but
Did you have other cheats though? Other things that you just had to do?
We didn't think of it as cheats, but things like spices, small quantities of cinnamon and nutmeg and stuff like that, but. The important thing is not to be perfect. This is, as I said, this was not a parlor game for us. We wanted to learn about food. We wanted to learn to think of food as a process rather than a product. And by doing it ourselves, we could write this book that would invite a lot of readers to know about food in the same way. Because if you know where it comes from, if you know how it grows and when, then you know when to look at it. For example, how to look for it in your farmer's market, which you have loads of here. You have a really lively local food scene here.
When you started this process, the attitude, the awareness about food and the process was much smaller compared to when you finished this book. You came out; it was a part of the conversation around the world, wasn't it?
Unbelievable. Yeah, when I first went into my publisher with this idea for this project, I was afraid they were going to, run and have an emergency conference on how to deprogram me or something.
All you had to say was turkey sex, Barbara.
Well, see,
I will train and untrain turkeys to have sex. I'm going to get a book deal.
You can read about it. Well, to their credit, they trusted me. I guess I've written a lot of books before, and mostly I write novels, and I told them I will make it a good story, I promise. And they trusted that I would. But I thought the hardest part about this book would be convincing the readers that there is a problem and that we really do need, as a culture, to recover some of our control, some of our engagement with our food system, and that we really need to learn the natural history of foods. Well, voila, 2 years later when we finished the book, people were really already there, really ready to hear this. And so it's been an incredible response. I never imagined.
This is a year of food life.
Yeah.
When the year was up, what was the first bit of garbage food that you ran for?
You know, it's embarrassing to admit. I didn't know when the year ended. I forgot to notice. I mean, earlier in the year, actually, when we first started, I thought, oh, this is going to be scary. When I was a little girl, I remember reading this Reader's Digest story about this family that got stranded in the desert, and they had a box of crayons that they ate, in their car. And I thought, oh, we're going to be eating crayons by, February. But in actual fact, we had a wonderful garden, zucchini notwithstanding. We had a great farmer's market. We stocked up for the winter. We kind of got this thing figured out. We learned a new way to think about food.
You didn't grab a chocolate bar, run for a Big Mac?
I thought maybe we would be sort of gnawing on our last frozen block of zucchini or something, but waiting for the year to end. It didn't happen that way. It was a paradigm shift. We changed how we thought about food. Instead of wanting everything all the time, we got used to sort of wanting what we had. We ate so well, we didn't notice when the year ended. It got to be April, and I said, wow, we did it, and we're still eating the same way. And I think a lot of people are doing the same thing.
Animal, Vegetable Miracle, A Year of Food Life. Barbara, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. Barbara Kingsolver, everybody. Just came out in paperback this month. Go get it. The Hour will be right back.